And joining us now is Todd Zawicki, George Mason University Foundation Professor of Law. Todd, thank you for coming on Faith Nation tonight. So you made news when you fought George Mason's vaccine mandate and you ended up winning. You've stated that you're not in the anti-vax camp. Tell us why you feel the mandate was wrong and why you didn't need the shot.
Well, my case relies specifically on me, which is I got COVID back in March 2020. It was no fun. Nobody needs to tell me not to get COVID again. And so I'm very conscious of this. And if there had been a vaccine back then, based on what I knew, I would have probably gotten it. It would have been a lot better off than getting COVID. But the reality is now I do have COVID. And it's very clear that once you have COVID and you've recovered, you've got natural immunity. And the evidence is clear now. It used to be that it was at least as good as vaccine immunity. It quite clearly now is better than vaccine immunity, as we saw in this study that came out from Israel this week that showed that those who have been vaccinated have a 13 times higher risk of infection, 27 times higher risk of symptomatic infection, 8 times higher risk of death than somebody with natural immunity like me. And so I was very careful. I got my antibodies tested. My immunologist said my antibodies level was comparable to somebody who had just been vaccinated. And so I don't need the vaccine in order to protect myself or those around me. And the final thing I'll say is the evidence is also very clear that those who have had COVID and recovered are at not just the same risk of side effects as anybody from any vaccine, but we actually have an elevated risk of side effects. So it really is all of, none of the benefits and all of the risks plus more of somebody who might actually benefit from the vaccine. And so based on that, I argued that I should get, based on my natural immunity, my demonstrable natural immunity, I should be exempted from the university's vaccine mandate.
Todd, along those lines, dissenters say the jury's still out. You just mentioned that Israeli study. A number of studies are touting natural immunity. What do you believe that means for calls supporting vaccine passports and vaccine credentials?
It's completely ridiculous. There have now been 15 studies of to compare natural immunity with vaccines, and all 15 have shown that in the range of 90 to 95% protection, which is what the mRNA vaccines are at their peak. And now, as we know, they wane very quickly. Another study from Israel found that vaccine protection wanes 40% a month. Natural immunity wanes 5% a month. And we know that it's much better than the more mediocre vaccines like Johnson & Johnson, which even in the clinical trials was only about 66% protection. There is literally no doubt about this anymore. It's also very clear that natural immunity, as we saw in the Israeli study, is very resistant to variants such as the Delta variant because it recognizes the entire protein, whereas the vaccine is only used to target this narrow spike protein. And now we're actually vaccinating people against a spike protein that is now extinct, and not only now extinct, it's been extinct for several generations of variants. And so natural immunity has proven itself on this. And as we see more and more breakthrough infections throughout the country, there are more breakthrough infections in a month. There are 35,000 breakthrough infections a week is what the CDC estimated. There have been more breakthrough infections just this spring than natural immunity breakthroughs in the entire world.
All right, Todd Zawicki, George Mason University Foundation Professor of Law. Thank you so much for coming on this evening. All the best.
Thank you, John and Jenna. Great to talk with you.